So is executive search a headhunter? Are those two things synonymous?
I think so.
Okay.
Because that's how people refer. I mean, we don't refer to ourselves that way, but other people refer to us that way. We did some research going back, I think, all the way to 2015 of job postings, what's in them for a CHRO. And in 2015, there were an average of like 8.5 skills
Okay.
for the CHRO. What do you think it is in 2025?
Oh, yeah, I would say like 30. I don't know.
Not that many.
Okay.
It kind of feels like that.
What are some of the things that have changed in the AI automation space for, CHROs and just HR leaders more generally right now? Like, how do you even source for an AI native CHRO? It's like, how is that even a thing?
Yeah, it's I'm doing a search right now for number 2 role that's about AI and talent innovation.
Welcome to Directionally Correct, a people analytics podcast with your host, Cole Napper, and today's guest, Jennifer Wilson, partner and co-head of the HR offices practice at Heidrick & Struggles. Hey, Directionally Correct fans. This podcast is dedicated to you to help democratize people intelligence for the world of work. If you're looking to support the podcast, please make sure to listen weekly, subscribe to the Directionally Correct Substack newsletter, sign up for the Data-Driven HR Academy at datadrivenhracademy.com, purchase Cole's book, People Analytics, or check out everything else at colenapper.com. Before we get into it, a quick word about HR Bench, the company powering this podcast. When we all started in people analytics, we wanted to do strategic work, building predictive models, workforce planning, advising the C-suite, and most of all, quantifying the impact for the business. Instead, we spend months building dashboards and reports that should already exist. HR Bench eliminates that entire phase. Your HRIS connects, your metrics calculate, your benchmarks populate. This is not novel. This is day 1, not quarter 2. That means skipping straight to prescriptive analysis, storytelling, and taking action for the business. Want to learn more? Book a demo at hrbench.com/directionallycorrect. Find out more about the company powering this podcast and building the future of people intelligence. As always, all opinions are our own, and thanks for being a listener. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Nice to be here.
One of the things that I have admired about you and the organization you represent at Heidrick & Struggles is the work that you guys do to support not just doing, the work of executive recruiting for any industry, but specifically for the HR industry, and especially at the CHRO or the chief people officer level. First of all, how did you get into that space?
Yeah, it's a bit of a winding road of how I ended up in search. And I'll tell you, I didn't even know what executive recruiting was until I was probably 35. Like, it just didn't cross my radar. My parents weren't in that space. My mom was a psychologist. My dad's an engineer. So I knew what headhunters were, but I didn't necessarily associate myself with like, oh, I could be a headhunter someday.
So is executive search a headhunter? Are those two things synonymous?
I think so.
Okay.
Because that's how people refer. I mean, we don't refer to ourselves that way, but other people refer to us that way. And I did a few things before business school, but I'll just speed up. Sure. So after business school, was very interested in getting into management consulting. I thought the variety would be interesting. Great way to keep learning. So did that for 10-ish years, many of which were in Hong Kong. And that was another fascinating layer because I was working with mainly European and American companies that were trying to expand or even just enter China at the time. And these were through the high growth days. Yeah. It was like 2007 when we arrived there. So just an incredible opportunity to see the world from that vantage point. But I noticed, even though the strategy projects were interesting, I was very much drawn to the organizational design types of projects, the people projects, the culture projects. And the firm I was with at the time didn't do that much of that. And then the headhunters started calling and saying, have you ever thought about executive search? And I said, well, tell me more about it. I haven't. And got increasingly interested. And when we moved back to the US in 2018, had this opportunity with Heidrick that was an incredible blend of my background, because I had the chance to come in under the head of the practice at the time, who had been a CHRO, has been a CHRO since. And he said, I'll teach you what you need to know about what great HR looks like, and I'll teach you how to do search. And so it's just an amazing opportunity coming back after being abroad for 10 years. And what I have found is that the profession is really a daily study of leadership. And I love that about it.
Yeah. Well, that's so amazing. Like, one of the things I give your firm in particular credit for is being very, research oriented in terms of trying to know like what's going on in the CHRO space. Obviously, right now is a very transformative time. So what's going on in terms of like what you see from the signals from your vantage point of like how is AI changing the role of a CHRO or in the role of HR? How is the expectations of the CEO and the board changing it, and how like what are the things that they're looking for in a top HR leader of the future?
There are a lot of threads there that you just introduced, so I'll try to take.
It's like we could do a whole podcast on it or something.
We could. And I started in this, like I was saying, in 2018. And already the talk was about, I need a strategic business partner. I need somebody who can influence across the C-suite. I mean, those types of things are the same as now, maybe amplified a bit. But now we hear more the words across enterprise leader. I need somebody who can tell me as the CEO what I need to be doing when it comes to linking the business strategy with the people strategy. And so I think it's in general just a ratcheting up of expectations around what the CHRO will be able to do for the organization. But each organization's distinct in kind of where they're coming from, where they're going to. And we work with the AI native companies on one end to the really kind of family oriented, not that into technology types of companies, and everything in between. And so it's not, I don't want to overgeneralize because that's dangerous, but
let's do some overgeneralization today, No.
Well, let's overgeneralize. Yeah. So definitely nobody wants the administrative HR leader of the past. That's clear.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a good thinker, good strategist. And what we increasingly hear also is high EQ. I think at points, the human can get lost in HR. And that has come back even more so because this time requires incredible empathy for the workforce, what we're all going through as a society. And the CHRO is the most visible representation of that. So that can't be lost either.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to pull something up really quick, which I know is something that you've seen, which was some of the research that Heidrick published. And this is from a LinkedIn post by Enrique Rubio, where he covers the 2026 Global Chief People Officer research report from you guys. And it has a few things that stood out of, only a minority of chief people officers are seen as enterprise leaders. Operational excellence is necessary, but also insufficient. A chief people officer role is moving up, but also outside of HR. AI is a people and a leadership issue. And middle management, these roles that are kind of the precursors to the chief people officer is changing rapidly as well. Again, a bunch of threads there to pull on, but does any of that stand out to you?
It does. And maybe just taking that increasing scope point again, we did some research going back, I think all the way to 2015 of job postings, what's in them for a CHRO. And in 2015, there were an average of like 8.5 skills for the CHRO. What do you think it is in 2025?
Oh, Yeah, I would say like 30. I don't know.
Luckily, not that many.
Okay.
It kind of feels like that, but it did almost double to 14
Okay.
in 2025. But gives you a sense of the expectations and the what's coming onto the plate. And I feel like CHROs get all the unsolvable
Yeah.
issues. Like figure out the hardest problems to solve that are human problems, from diversity to AI adoption to crisis management that often ends up with the CHRO.
Well, and thinking along those lines, like what are some of those newer skills? And I know one of the things that we talked about prepping for this is like how there are some challenges from moving from the number two level in HR, like the VP or the SVP level, to truly being that CHRO or the chief people officer, and like what's holding the field back.
Yeah, we'll start with the first part of that.
Yeah.
So the skills that we're seeing, the new skills, if you will, but I think many of these are timeless. But the ones most prioritized by top performing CEOs, first AI, automation, and digital enablement. And I want to come back to that because there we can talk
Yes.
a
Let's
lot
please
about
do.
that. Second is CEO advisory, so this consigliere point. Ethics and integrity is another. And then back more on the core skills, succession planning. And I think that has ratcheted up the last 2 years, also just demographically where we are
Mm,
of CEOs getting older. Organizational design, that also has a relation to AI, of course.
yeah.
Workforce planning and workforce restructuring. So
Mm.
those skills are what we're seeing as more the leading edge skills that CEOs want.
Okay.
Versus
Can I make a comment about that? Because going back to your point about starting in the field in 2018, I don't think any of those skills were like the top thing that, a future aspiring CHRO was told that they need to be building. Maybe org design from like an M&A
Yeah,
standpoint or something like that. But
it's a good point. Yeah, I mean ethics and integrity
oh yeah,
clearly,
sure.
but CEO advisor, yes.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like AI wasn't even on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Succession planning still was being triggered by somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily CHRO. And now they're at the best companies. The CHROs are really leading that process along with the board. Um, yeah, no, it's a good observation.
Well, let's dig into because, like, again, no CHROs were talking about AI in 2018, unless they were very, very rare. What are some of the things that have changed in the AI automation space for CHROs and just HR leaders more generally right now? Like, how do you even source for an AI native CHRO? It's like, how is that even a thing?
Yeah, it's I'm doing a search right now for a number two role that's
Okay.
about AI and talent innovation. So search strategy wise, not easy. Nobody's got that combination essentially. Some are dabbling in pieces of it, but somebody who's really brought together all of the talent lifecycle with enterprise AI transformation is it's just new. So it's not really about finding the exact skill set. It's much more about curiosity, change management, ability to influence, those types of skills versus the exact technical skills. So yeah, an AI native CHRO is
Yeah.
a rare bird.
When it seems like there's like this combination of things like not just AI, but workforce transformation, again, that things like org design, workforce planning, and then just more generic, like again, the talent management, the succession planning. And those, somebody doesn't typically get all those skills in a singular role. Like if you led compensation before, or you led a talent function, or you were like a head of HR business partners, you
Right.
don't necessarily get all those skills. So how does one acquire the skill set to be ready for tomorrow?
It's a huge question. And I think one of the things that HR as a function suffers from is that the way HR leaders of today have been built isn't adequate.
Mm-hmm.
So you start out largely in an administrative role in the function because you're junior, and then some specialize, but then you obviously don't get the breadth. And then the ones that move through the functions and don't do like a more of a business centric one end up with a reputation of being a corporate HR person, unable to influence the business. So it's tricky. And I think it's sort of beyond the scope of probably what I should be talking about HR career paths, but that's what we see though as a consequence in the executive leadership layer is, to your point, many haven't been groomed to take on these kinds of challenges.
When many people are even, they're
Mm.
even coming in from outside of the HR function, or they're getting critical experiences outside of HR. And that seems to be a trend that's been increasing in the last few years as well, too, right?
Yes, some are. I think it's from a data perspective, maybe 6% of current Fortune 1000 sitting CHROs have no HR background.
Okay.
Maybe another 30% have a blended background.
Hmm.
But there are other ways to slice it. Like people who start in management consulting and then get into HR are often attractive to CEOs because they think, oh, they must have some stronger than average business acumen.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's collecting the right kinds of experiences, and that takes so long. It takes decades. And so what do we do now is the big question of how do you get this next layer of leadership ready? And you were asking a number 2 question before. You're almost always in a functional space until you're the number 1.
Yep.
Where you suddenly become enterprise wide. There are exceptions to that if you're like a divisional business partner, because then you're kind of leading across the organization of that division or that geography. But otherwise, really hard to get that experience. And so it's a totally different job to go from number 2 to number 1.
Well, you're teeing me up for something. You're not realizing it. So I'm very curious. So there's research and then there's me search about like me and what's going on in my own world.
Mm.
And I'm always very curious about people analytics in particular as part of the HR function. And one of my common riffs has always been one of the few roles in HR that sees from the same vantage point as the CHRO is whoever's leading people analytics, because they're responsible for providing data across all the centers of excellence to the HR business partners, ideally working with the business directly as well, and the shared services that are going on. And so it's one of the few leaders that actually has the same kind of care abouts as the CHRO. So one of the big questions I wanted to have for you today is, does people analytics equip you to be a CHRO someday? And if so, why? And if not, what is missing from the equation?
I think it absolutely can,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't have only done that. There are too many other pieces of HR that you have to master, or almost, you don't have to fully master them in order to rise to that level, both from a just exposure and capability, but I think even, and as importantly, a CEO trusting that you can handle the job.
Yes.
And so you have to collect those experiences beyond just people analytics. Now, do I wish more CHROs had a stint before in people analytics? Yeah, helpful. For sure, for a data-driven approach to the function. But I think of it more, from my perspective at least, it would be a rotation that you do as an HR leader. Difficult to build a career in data analytics and then take that step, at least today.
No, I I think I would even probably go a little bit more radical than what you said. Because like one of the things you mentioned earlier is being a consigliere, right? One of
Mm-hmm.
the ways that you get that experience in HR is to be an HR business partner. You have
Right.
to be a trusted advisor to the business. People analytics just doesn't get the reps doing that. It is a missing part of the equation.
Well, because it's a step away, right? You don't have
Correct.
you're not helping them deliver the P&L.
Correct. And then the second part is kind of the P&L part, which is just being like the operator. And that could be having a stint in different parts of HR, kind of from that rotational perspective, but also maybe something out in the business. So you actually have some skin in the game via actual accountability, like a P&L for the work that you're doing. And I think most people analytics leaders see it as a singular career track. So I'm just going to get better and better and better at people analytics. And then eventually I'll be a CHRO someday. And it's too linear.
Yeah, and there are other ways to skin that cat. Like if somebody wants to broaden from pure people analytics, say if they're at the director level, like why not take on some of the other pieces of HR operations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get some shared services experience, and then broaden and think about employee engagement. Like all of this, the service matters to how you're experiencing the company, and that can be a way to maybe transfer into some talent
Yeah.
aspects and thinking, but probably you have to maybe be more aggressive about managing your own career in people analytics.
Do you think if your daughter were to ask you if she could be a headhunter in the future, that would
Which
be a
she does.
wise career pathway for her?
Yeah, that's she we talk a lot about kind of AI and what's happening in the world with our kids, and but I still think this will be a profession in 30 years. Yeah, just the nature of the judgment, the human connection. I mean, just do you want to talk about your salary details with a bot? Like, I don't, probably not. Maybe we'll all get to a point there, but yeah, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think we are in the process of augmenting how we do our work, and we hope we are doing that in service of our clients, of just doing it even better and faster. But there's no plan to replace people
Yeah.
in our business.
I don't think AI is going to do it. I know I told you in prep for the podcast, the concept of a matchmaker or just like a connector, that's existed for time immemorial, right?
Hmm.
It's been
Right.
around forever. And so it like I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but there's something called the Lindy effect, which is as long as something has existed, it means it's as long as it's probably going to exist into the future. And
Mm.
so my concept with this when it comes to analytics is like the concept of a spreadsheet has existed for thousands of years, right? So the chances that AI is going to completely automate everything a spreadsheet does is probably low. Like it's got a stickiness factor that is high. But, building a pivot table on the other hand, well, that can be automated,
Go for it.
right?
Exactly. Save me the trouble. Right.
So I think you're well positioned. I think your daughter is well positioned. I think it's definitely an important concept. I know the people out there are wondering though,
The people.
the people. 'Cause I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation with somebody in the field, and it goes something like this. It's like, do you know any good headhunters? I'm really looking to kind of move to the next phase of my career. And, I don't, not sure I have the right connections. And if I could just meet the right person, I'm going to get the role XYZ that I know I've always been going for. Is that a valid way of looking at your own career search? And is that how people should think about working with executive search firms?
Oh, it's a rich topic. So I think sometimes I'll start with people, since you're talking about the people,
The people.
don't
We're talking
understand.
about the people here.
We're talking about the people. They may not understand that the people who pay us are our corporate clients.
Mm-hmm.
We do not represent an individual. And so, do we want to meet up and comers who are really talented? Of course, because we're always trying to increase our pipelines of known great leaders. But as a strategy for an individual coming up, it's a low volume game. So it's also about getting to the right person who's aligned with what you do. That can be hard to figure out in the way we organize our business. And there are, 5 big search firms, hundreds of boutiques. So I don't think it's not the strategy. It's part of an overall strategy.
You remember this expression came up when social media first came onto the scene, which was, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's some wisdom to be gained there for a lot of people in the field, because it's a common misunderstanding amongst the people
Right.
that they're just one, good executive search firm away from the role of their dreams. And I think they're fundamentally misunderstanding the proposition there. I do have a curiosity. So you have an interesting claim to fame.
What's that?
Having been an American voice on the BBC.
Yeah.
Tell me about how does one do start into that or luck their way into that?
Yeah, that was not through a headhunter. I was living in London and I don't know, young. I was like 25 and had this job that I loved. I worked for a publication called Knowledge Management Review, and I was the deputy editor, and then I became the editor. And it's just this little trade publication that no one's ever read, but I was very proud of it. And my boss at the time had a friend at the BBC, and she just pulled me aside and she said, she needs an American voice to read viewer comments. I'm like, what? She's like, just read the comments and then you'll be on the broadcast every Sunday, because there was this BBC show about viewer comments. And so I became the American voice because it was part of their diversity to have that accent peppered with the other British accents.
The American voice of Britishness. Jennifer Wilson.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. Are you into like Westerns? Like what are you into right now?
Yeah, you could not have, for most of my life, coerced me into even watching a Western. And now I'm obsessed with Western things.
Why?
So it started just with a love of the mountains and the West. And my parents moved to Southern Utah.
Oh, nice.
22 years ago. I grew up in the Midwest, but then when they moved out there, it's just a different, I think, approach to life that's much more individualistic. And I've always loved history. I was a history major and a business major in college, and maybe it started then. That's probably, so yeah, before my parents moved, that's how I got started in thinking about the West and the frontiers people. But I read Lonesome Dove because I set this goal for myself that I was not going to read any nonfiction this year, which is radical for me. But I was consuming too much nonfiction, business books. I mean, just, you know how it is. It's like article after article that come to you. And I still read articles.
I suffer from this disease as well, I promise.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to go get that book. And then I have this pile of stuff. So I said, what really renews me is reading fiction. So I'm going to read 12 fiction books this year. Unfortunately, Lonesome Dove took 2 months because it was 900 pages. So I got to catch up. But absolutely loved it. The story stuck with me. I just started The Streets of Laredo, which is the next one in the tetralogy. Is that a fun word?
I've never heard out before.
The tetralogy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I've watched Landman and Yellowstone and the whole nine.
I love it.
I'm one of those people.
A rugged individualist. Yeah, like
sort of, but I also
little tumbleweed rolling by like the West. It's like, how lonesome was that dove to write about it for 900 pages? You know?
No kidding. That guy can weave a story.
Well, Jennifer, would you like to join me in Cole's Corner?
Let's do it.
Welcome to Cole's Corner. All right. I've got some rapid fire questions for you. So the first
I have no prep for this, people.
You're prepped? You're good? You're ready?
No, I've had no prep, so I don't know what's coming.
Well, no. It's the same questions every week. No one realizes this for some reason. I don't know why. But regardless, let's get into it. So the rapid fire is, if you weren't doing what you're doing today, so executive search, what would you have done with your career?
I think I would have been a doctor.
What kind of doctor?
Surgeon.
Yeah. Well, what's the place you've never been to that you'd most like to go, and why?
There are just so many places. I've never been to Africa, and I would like to go to many places in Africa, but Kenya, I'd like to go on a safari, and I'm really open anywhere in Africa, but I have not set foot on that continent.
You know, Kenya is like the west of Africa, you know, it's not
geographically
the west, but it's, you know, same, I guess, like climate or something.
The frontier.
Yes, the frontier. If you were a character in any book, TV show, or movie, who would you be and why?
Book, TV show, or... Oh, you know what? We'll go back to the doctor thing. So I really like the main character on The Pit,
The
the
Pit.
attending doctor.
I've seen it
Noah
advertised to me. I
Wiley.
have not watched it. Is it good?
It's intense. It's a lot of blood, but
Okay.
it's very good from a human drama perspective too. You get kind of attached to the characters and the cases, at least I do. But I think his leadership I respect. And I liked him when he was a young a doctor on ER, like when I watched ER in high school. And
Oh,
now
so he was
he's
back with
thrown
George
more.
Clooney, the same guy?
It's Noah Wiley is the
Okay.
actor.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know his name.
So I wouldn't want to be a man. I'd want to be the female version of Noah Wiley.
We would allow it, I
Okay.
think. Well, I got one big question for you. And I know you said you don't like painting in generalizations. We're going to ask you to paint a generalization here. If you were kind of working in a lab, maybe dissecting a frog, perhaps, and trying to create the ideal HR leader for 2026, what would that person like? What characteristics would they have? What skills would they have? What experiences? Like, what are you looking for? And this is just your dream candidate. Does it, you know, it doesn't have to generalize to anybody else.
Wow. I feel like I should have a really robust answer to this. I'm going to say engaging,
Mm-hmm.
empathetic, data driven, agile.
Interesting. A lot of Riz in your comment. I like this. Some charisma,
As the kids would say.
as the kids would
Riz.
say. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, that's I really like that answer. That's good. And I think that means there's hope for people analytics people because data
The data.
analytics is one of them, and then the rest is just personality. It's like, guys, you got to
Right.
work on your personality, people. So, well, let's do some. What am I reading?
Okay.
All right. And did you get these when I sent them over?
I did.
All
I
right.
did.
Perfect. So the first one I have is from Dr. John Sullivan. And for those who are listeners to the podcast, know he's a frequent person that we've cited his articles. So he published one recently. Don't penalize them. Instead, target early adopters that used AI in their job search. And so I think it's like one of those books you can kind of judge by the title of, he's essentially saying if people are using AI, this isn't something you should be weeding out of their the selection process. This should be something that you're actually selecting for, and that he believes that a lot of organizations and the tools that are out there are actually trying to kind of weed these people out of the process. I'll give my reaction real quick, but I'd love to get your perspective, which is I think he's misdiagnosing the problem that it's not necessarily users that are using AI. It's that some people are paying for tools or even paying other people to use AI on their behalf to give them a leg up so they're not actually demonstrating their own AI usage skills, but they're demonstrating what their wallet can pay for or what a friend of theirs can do on their behalf. And I think that's where a lot of employers are really having issues with the AI usage. Not so much is a person using AI, but what are your thoughts on, you're more on that side of the table. Are you seeing this as a phenomena in the space, and how do you come down on it?
Yeah, and I think what he's talking about is a bit different from what we do at the executive level,
Mhm.
but I would say I have received what I would call AI slop resumes
Yes.
where I'm like, clearly someone didn't even like they barely put any effort into this. And does that make me more I probably just won't spend much time with that person.
When I think according to his argument, he's saying you should be selecting for that. And I would think like that's actually the opposite of you're not actually demonstrating your AI skills. You're demonstrating very novice levels of skill.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're going to use it well.
Yeah.
Use it to enhance what you have. Use it to tell a story more compellingly. And at least at the executive level, we're using so many data points on somebody. It's not just about their resume and it's also not how we're selecting
Yeah.
for people.
I mean,
So
this may be apocryphal, but the leaders who created like the Hogan assessment, it's like one of these tools out there. They always said they actually believe that you should hire the people who are good at faking rather than trying to weed out the people that are good at faking because they're also demonstrating job relevant skills. right? And that's a pretty controversial
You see
belief,
that.
but it is a signal of something. And so if you're good at faking your AI usage, you're probably pretty good at AI.
Yeah, I just don't. I guess I don't see I don't see it as much of a problem, maybe as um, for us. But
Yeah,
I know his argument is more like you should be selecting for it.
sure.
Um, it's just that's not how people are coming into our network, so it's a little bit
No,
off.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
All right, let me hit you with the next one really quick. So we've got a post from Felix Thompson, or Timpson, sorry, where he is covering a recent article in the annual review of organizational psychology and org behavior, with written by called "Hiring People in Organizations: The State and the Future of Science." So this is one of those from the academic literature. This is one of those things that's covering kind of the state of the state of what's going on about how to hire people in 2026. And this is written by Paul Sackett and Philip Levens and Richard Landers. Paul Sackett, previous guest of the podcast. So good to know. And so Felix summarizes some of the things in here. He says, some of the science that we rely on is not as strong as we think. He gives the example of cognitive abilities tests that used to be considered kind of the gold standard have somewhat decreased in their stature as of late. Hiring tools themselves are not necessarily plug and play. Most assessments aren't a single tool, they're a collection of tools. And therefore, how you mix and match them can really drastically impact the efficacy of the results. Technology is changing how we hire, but not in the way that hype suggests. So, automation is increasingly supporting the development of tests at scale, not just how users are taking the tests. And then fairness and effectiveness are not mutually exclusive. So it was thought that the more predictive a test or assessments or hiring selection procedures could be, the more, disparate impact they might create in the process. And that's not necessarily true, that there are trade-offs, but sometimes there are not. And so this was a really interesting set of articles. But again, from your personal vantage point, Jennifer, how was your reaction to this?
Yeah, and I didn't read the whole article, but or
You
any of
get the
it.
podcast. Well done. No.
Yeah, I just read the synopsis. So yeah, I mean, the way we see assessment is that it's one piece of the decision making process, one input into the decision making process.
Mm-hmm.
And we do find them helpful. I think, interviewers are not particularly good at interviewing. I mean, that's kind of proven by the science. There's a ton of bias in it. And even when we interview for a living, there's still plenty of bias in it.
Yeah.
So we have to have other means of getting at whether someone's a good fit. Back channel referencing is probably the most helpful, also controversial. But how somebody shows up to others and getting a range of viewpoints around that are not their official references is the best way to figure that out. But in assessment terms, like we have really cool tools, but it's, and I guess this isn't really the point of the article, but to me, there's still such a gap in like predictive tools.
Mm-hmm.
Like, great, there's more data we have on this person, but are they actually going to succeed in this role? And I think that's what we need for the modern times. It's like, how is somebody going to deal with adversity? How's somebody going to deal with just the immense amount of change that will be part of this role and any role? I don't think we're great at that yet. Starting to get there. We have this AI assessment that just came out, and I took it as a user. My palms were sweating. Like it was hard and intense because you're like trying to solve a problem, and there are all these inputs, and it felt quite real. And maybe that's a good way to test agility, but there are all these other dimensions to a person at the executive level. And, if we're serious about it at the end, it's chemistry between the CEO and the CHRO. So you can have all of this behind it. And it is important to have that assessment data because it can also be used developmentally to say, here's how you'll probably need to guide this person or what to watch out for. And I think the Hogan's actually a great tool for that.
Absolutely. Well, let me move on to the last one then. So we have got an article. Hold on.
Yes, I did read that one all the way through.
All the way through. Oh, no. You know more than I do now. Um, so this is from a recent HBR article called "Should Your Company Merge Its CHRO and CTO Roles?" And this is obviously inspired by the example from Moderna, and this is talking about some of the things that this is an article from Peter Capelli, but it's summarized on LinkedIn by somebody named Eddie Goldberg, and they're saying that many are treating the collapsing of these two roles into one is that AI is collapsing functional boundaries. HR and technology should formally merge, and that this is a model that others should replicate at other organizations. And so the thought from the author is that AI is forcing tighter coordination across workforce strategy, role redesign, performance evaluation, and governance and trust. But what HR leaders should really be asking is, how do we build shared accountability between HR and IT? How do we integrate AI into people systems responsibly? And how do we upskill leaders to work across human and technical domains without relying on unicorns that are just these individuals that happen to have world class levels of technical knowledge and world class levels of human knowledge as well, and expecting that to be how we rule the day of HR. But since you did read this whole article, what did
Yeah.
you think about this one?
No, I completely agree with how Eddie framed that. It's kind of the wrong question, I think.
Okay.
It's how do we as a CHRO and a technology leader collaborate to make this happen? It's 80% to me a human issue.
Hmm.
Probably a lot of tech leaders would disagree with that. Some think it's 100% tech issue. Um, and so I think it's more about how do we work together to implement AI in a way that makes sense for our organization. And the roles are too disparate. I mean, HR is just way complex on its own. Technology is very complex on its own. Like, why try to get all that in one person? There are unicorns like Tracy. Great.
Yeah.
She can handle both of those roles because she has the background in both. But trying to, I mean, even the article, like, should your company merge the roles? Like, well, for what? Like, what are you trying to solve? If you're trying to not have as many silos, then don't have as many silos. Like, just work together.
Yeah. Well, I'll say
Yeah.
this, speaking for the people again for a second.
Yeah, okay.
When and Tracy being the CHRO slash CTO of Moderna, when
Hmm.
that happened, that created such a stir amongst HR leaders. It was like the talk of everything is like, are we even going to exist anymore? Are we just going to be rolled into IT? Is there any future here? This created quite the buzz. And then, there was the kind of counter swing of the pendulum back to, oh, everything's fine. This is never going to happen. She's just this unique unicorn individual. We don't have anything to worry about. And I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle, which is, if you went to like a CHRO staff meeting and a CTO staff meeting, of which I've been to many of both, there's like zero overlap, like in terms of the things that they typically talk about. Now that said, the technology strategy and the workforce strategy of firms because of AI are merging together. And that's weird. It's super weird. And no one is used to it yet. Anybody who says they're used to it is lying because it's just not typically, we've never looked at technology as a workforce issue and we've never looked at humans as a technology issue. It's just a different way of looking at things. And so, one of the things that I've been talking a lot about lately is how what I call AI workforce transformation is really not only the word of the year for 2026, but probably in the next few years, because this is a weird fundamental shift in how organizations are thinking. And so HR people should not be resting on their laurels at all. But also, I don't think that the merger of these things happening is just going to be like a broader trend that we're going to see everywhere.
And this is a chance for HR leaders to, again, step up and shine. Like,
Mhm.
use your organizational design and change management skills to co author this transformation, because in 5 years, our workforces will look different. Whether we like it or not, they will look different. So, author that along with the tech team and others to create the right kind of human and tech connections.
Absolutely. I do have one more question for you. So, having lived overseas for a little bit, right? So you were in London, you were in Hong Kong for 10 years. Does that give you kind of a different vantage point on working, amongst different organizations? Because like it's like you're like a cultural outsider, right? And you have to kind of see things from a different vantage point. Does that give you a unique vantage point in terms of like how you view the world now?
I like to think it's made me more holistic in how I think about general problem solving as
Mhm.
well as organizational problem solving. And we'll often have clients say like, I need somebody who's not the ugly American. Like, I know what they mean. So
Yeah,
it's
I get it.
somebody who has that cross-cultural fluency. I think I'm better able to detect that in people because I've lived it myself and had to adapt in many different ways um, to that. So I'd like to think it's given me some breadth and depth. Yeah.
Absolutely. Was there anything you wanted to talk with me about today?
I would love to hear what you think is going to happen to people analytics with the power of AI. Like, what will be the leader of the future, knowing that a lot of the technical skills
Hmm.
are automated?
Yeah.
Where's clearly there's judgment and interpretation. But I'm curious what you think will happen to the field.
Yeah. I mean, my model, which I learned from a talent leader earlier in my career, her name was Jana. She's amazing. It was always broader, higher, deeper. Right. So broader being getting a breadth of experiences across multiple functions, higher being moving up the management ladder, and deeper being gaining more subject matter expertise into your particular area. Many
Mm-hmm.
folks in analytics have historically, if they leaned on one of those three more than the others, it was usually deeper. Right. And to me, that career pathway is the most tenuous. It used to be the least tenuous and probably the most stable, and the one that gave you, even if you're an analytical person, it's the one that probably gave you the most satisfaction because you got to
Right.
really,
You keep getting to do the
exactly, you
work.
get to level up, and to use like video game speak. Right. And I think that that fundamentally shifts things. But to the conversation, and frankly, my motivation for having you on today is to hear, somebody with your credible expertise and knows what's going on in the world, is to show there's actually a promising future if you lean into more than just being a technical person, right? And the skills that you gain and the experiences that you have, and it's possible. Like when you listed off kind of your dream set of characteristics for an HR leader, those are all possible for somebody in people analytics. Like all of them. I don't think any of them are something that is not something a person in the field could not have. And to me, the fact that AI is coming for a lot of the technical work presents our best opportunity in years because of this. And so I've been saying that there's kind of a successor ideology. If people analytics is an ideology, the successor ideology is what I'm calling people intelligence. I'm actually in the process of writing up
Yeah.
somewhat of like a manifesto about this of sorts. It might be out by the time this comes out. Don't know. Still
I'll
working
read
on
it.
it. But essentially, what it looks like is, if you were to leave what I call like traditional people analytics behind, what does the future look like? And I think it's the combination of taking the best parts and the most value added parts and the most human parts that were left between people analytics, workforce planning, talent intelligence, and behavioral science, and incorporating those into a singular function. And the singular function is solely focused on bringing the value of humans and using technology to show that value, but bringing the value of humans to organizations as we look forward towards the future. And I think that's an exciting future, personally.
I like that vision, and and I know you implied it, but I would say, and with that wrapper, solving the right business problems.
Oh, sure. Yes. That's, I, if I left that
Implied.
out, that was
Yeah.
purely an oversight.
Yes,
But
I know.
yeah, exactly. But Jennifer, it has been fantastic having you on as a guest today. If anybody wants to reach out or learn more about the work at Hydrick and Struggles, your research, or get connected with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on our website under my profile, and my email, and I think my landline at work are on there, my Zoom phone.
Yeah.
So
Don't
that's
call our
probably
landline, people, please.
just email me. It's
Yeah.
probably the best
Just,
way.
But
But thanks for having me.
yeah, this is
It's been fun.
awesome. Well, you've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with your host, Cole Napper, and today's guest, Jennifer Wilson. Thanks for joining me, Jennifer.